The land of the rising sun, Japan, is a place I've been to once, but not for very long. I was getting another flight from a flight. I spent years in the army in Korea, and we had to stop in Japan. I was there for many, many hours. I got to experience that much of Japan, and I've been wanting to go back ever since. It is a beautiful place, the history there, the people. I need more. I need more of Japan, not to mention the food, even though I'm not a big seafood guy. But Japan is just a place I need to spend a lot of time in. And it might happen this year, to be honest with you. I do film TV shows all around the country. This will be all around the world. And Japan is on that list. So it'll either be this year or next year. I'll tell you all about it. But Mia Lawson, in our short story today, lived out a dream to go to Japan and had good reasons to go, not just to experience the culture, but business reasons as well. But I hope my trip goes a lot better than hers did. There's a lot of disturbing content in this one. We're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about the legendary suicide forest that's in Japan, which I'd actually like to visit just to say I did. And yeah, if any of that stuff triggers you or bothers you, then don't watch. You can still like and subscribe and do all that stuff before you go, but I'm just giving you a little, what do they call it, a trigger warning? Do we really I don't think you need that. I think you're a grown-ass adult or a smart kid or somebody, but I'm just saying, there's gonna be elements of these topics involved with this short story. So we're going to Japan, people. Let's go right now. You ready? Did you pack your bags? Yeah, I'm leaving now, so let's.
The Haunting of Aokigahara. On what was supposed to be a fresh start, a 22-year-old woman named Mia Lawson ventured to Japan for the very first time, eager to explore a land rich in culture, mystery, and beauty. But the trip that was meant to be an adventure quickly devolved into a nightmare. Abducted by ruthless human traffickers and forced to endure unspeakable horrors, Mia's desperate escape came only through a freak accident, a misfired pistol that fatally wounded one of her captors. Years later, determined to reclaim her life and confront the ghosts of her past, Mia returned to Japan. Instead, she found herself haunted by the spectral presence of the very man who had kidnapped her, a ghost whose quiet appearance in a lonely park sparked memories that would unravel her sanity. What follows is the documented account of that second tragic trip, a journal filled with terror, loss, and an ending that none could have foreseen. In the summer of 2018, Mia Lawson arrived in Tokyo, her heart alight with anticipation. A bright-eyed 22-year-old from a small Midwestern town, she had dreamed of exploring Japan's neon-lit streets, ancient temples, and serene gardens. But her first encounter with the country's darker side began on a rain-soaked night. After a long day of sightseeing, Mia accepted a ride from a friendly local she'd met near Shibuya. That ride, however, would become the turning point of her life. In a deserted back alley on the outskirts of the city, masked men ambushed her. Before she could scream, she was overpowered and taken, her pleas drowned out by the relentless rain. Mia was thrust into a grim world of human trafficking. For days, she endured terror and uncertainty, clinging to every hope of escape. One fateful night, as her captors gathered in a cramped warehouse to plan their next move, one of them carelessly cleaned his pistol. A misfire rang out, and the bullet struck him in the chest. In the ensuing chaos, Mia managed to break free, bruised, terrified, and with broken bones as she escaped into the neon night. She barely survived that ordeal. The memory of that escape, however, would never leave her. Years passed. Though Mia sought therapy and built a new life far from Japan's bustling streets, the memories of that first trip, the terror, the betrayal, continued to haunt her. Determined to overcome her past, she decided to return to Japan in 2022, hoping that by confronting the land where her nightmare began, she could finally lay her demons to rest. Arriving in Osaka, Mia's resolve was strong. She had kept every scrap of evidence from her first trip: hospital reports, fragments of conversations, and even a crumpled photograph of one of her captors, the man who had accidentally shot himself. His face, gaunt and sorrowful, was burned into her memory. Mia's second trip was meticulously planned. She kept a detailed journal of every encounter, every uneasy feeling that crept into the corners of her mind. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. A quiet exploration of shrines, gardens, and crowded markets that washed away the lingering dread. But as night fell, a persistent, inexplicable sensation began to follow her. One crisp autumn evening, while strolling through a little-known park near Ueno, Mia's world shifted. The park, usually filled with the soft hum of nocturnal insects and the distant murmur of city life, was eerily deserted. Beneath a solitary street lamp, she glimpsed a figure that made her blood run cold. There, standing motionless on a bench, was a man whose face was hauntingly familiar, the face of the captor who had inadvertently freed her. His eyes, shadowed and empty, met hers for a brief moment. In that frozen second, Mia's heart pounded so loudly she could almost hear it over the silence. The figure then vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only a lingering chill and the taste of despair on her tongue. Terrified, yet compelled to understand what she was seeing, Mia began chronicling every encounter. Night after night, she saw the spectral figure in different parts of the city, a fleeting glimpse on a train platform, a reflection in a rain-soaked window, always appearing when she was alone. Her journal became a lifeline, a desperate attempt to capture and rationalize the irrational. Mia's journal entries grew increasingly frantic. She wrote about disembodied whispers in the corridors of her Tokyo hotel, about the recurring image of that ghostly face that would appear in her peripheral vision. One entry read, "Tonight, as I sat in a quiet corner of Yoyogi Park, the figure emerged again. This time he looked at me with an expression of deep sorrow, as if pleading for forgiveness. I felt both terror and an inexplicable pity. What twisted fate binds us together?" Her entries were meticulous, detailing dates, times, locations, and even the exact weather conditions on the nights she saw him. Mia began to question whether this ghost was a manifestation of her trauma or something far more sinister. The terror of her first experience had been physical, a brutal kidnapping and escape. This was different. This was a psychological, spectral haunting that gnawed at her sanity with each passing night. As weeks turned into a month, Mia's grip on reality began to slip. She spent her days in a haze of anxiety, haunted by nightmares of dark alleys and ghostly eyes. In her journal, she scribbled frantic entries about hearing his voice, soft and mournful, in the rustling leaves and in the hum of the city's neon lights. One night, in an entry written with trembling urgency, she described a vision so vivid it sent shivers down her spine. "I found myself at the edge of a vast forest near Mount Fuji, a place locals call the Sea of Trees, or Aokigahara, where many have lost their way and, tragically, their lives. I wandered there, compelled by a force I cannot explain, as if the ghost was leading me. In that suffocating silence, I saw him one last time. He beckoned me forward with his hollow eyes, and I felt I could not resist." In that entry, Mia's words became more disjointed, reflecting a mind teetering on the edge of collapse. The ghost, once a fleeting presence, had become a constant tormentor, a symbol of the guilt and unresolved horror that plagued her. Against her better judgment, Mia found herself drawn to Aokigahara, the infamous suicide forest near Mount Fuji. Known for its dark reputation, the forest was a place where despair and death intermingled. With her journal clutched tightly in hand, she ventured into the eerie woodland at dusk. The forest was oppressively quiet, the thick canopy blotting out the fading light. Every step felt weighted, as if the ground itself was trying to hold her back. In the distance, a faint whisper seemed to call her name, merging with the rustle of leaves and the creak of ancient trees. Mia scribbled furiously in her journal, her handwriting frantic as she recorded every sensation. As the darkness deepened, so did her isolation. The ghost appeared one final time, a spectral figure standing in a clearing, illuminated by the ghostly light of the moon. His expression was one of profound sorrow, yet also of menace. He beckoned her closer, and in that moment, Mia's mind shattered under the cumulative weight of her terror and despair. Mia's last journal entry was found on a damp, torn page among her scattered belongings. In it, her words were a desperate plea, a final cry into the void. I cannot escape the past. I have seen his eyes in every shadow, heard his whispers in every gust of wind. Tonight, in the sea of trees, I followed him deeper into the darkness. The forest spoke of lost souls, and I feel my own slipping away. I write these words as a farewell, not just to the world, but to myself. I wish to be free of this relentless haunting, even if it means surrendering to the eternal silence. May those who find this understand that sometimes the ghosts we fear are not those of others, but the ones we carry within. The entry ended abruptly. The ink smudged as if by trembling hands, and by the tears of a soul that had finally given in to the darkness. Mia's disappearance shocked those who had known her. Authorities searched Aokigahara, and her journal was recovered among her personal effects. The news media speculated on the mysterious circumstances: a haunted return, a ghostly tormentor, a tragic end in a forest known for its morbid history. Friends and therapists debated whether Mia had succumbed to her inner demons or been driven to madness by an unexplainable paranormal force. Then came the unexpected twist. A year after her disappearance, an independent paranormal investigator named Daniel Kim reviewed Mia's journal in meticulous detail. In a series of interviews with local residents and experts on Japanese folklore, Daniel uncovered a startling possibility. The ghost that haunted Mia might not have been the man who had kidnapped her at all. According to archival records, a man by the name of Kazuo Ishikawa, a notorious human trafficker, had died in custody years before Mia's first trip. His death ruled an accident after a botched weapon cleaning. But further digging revealed that Ishikawa had a long history of involvement in dark rituals tied to the underbelly of Japan's criminal world, a world where death and the supernatural were inextricably linked. Witnesses claimed that his spirit, tormented by guilt and a desire for retribution, had been seen wandering the streets of Tokyo for years. Daniel posited that Mia's haunting was not merely a figment of her trauma, but a manifestation of Ishikawa's unsettled soul. The ghost, it seemed, had latched onto her, the one person who had unwittingly released him from the shackles of his earthly existence by triggering the accident. In a final twist that rocked the paranormal community, Daniel discovered that Mia had once confided in a close friend that her nightmares of a ghostly captor were not entirely inexplicable. They were accompanied by a recurring message whispered in her ear: "Remember me." The friend, now an elderly man, recalled Mia's words with a shudder. She said he wasn't there to harm her, but to remind her of what she had escaped and what she could never forget. It turned out that the ghost was not solely a figure of terror, but a complex symbol of the intertwined fates of victim and villain, a manifestation of a past so dark that even death could not silence its echoes. Mia's final act in Aokigahara was not simply an escape from the relentless haunting, but a tragic surrender to a fate that had been sealed long before her arrival in Japan. Mia Lawson's story continues to haunt those who dare to traverse the boundaries between the living and the dead. Her journal, a chronicle of terror and heartbreak, serves as a stark reminder that sometimes our worst nightmares are not conjured by the supernatural, but are the echoes of our own experiences magnified by guilt and grief. In the years since her disappearance, investigators and paranormal enthusiasts have debated the true nature of the ghost that followed her. Was it the tortured soul of Kazuo Ishikawa, condemned to roam the earth by his own misdeeds? Or was it a manifestation of Mia's own inner demons, a projection of a trauma that could never truly be escaped? One thing remains clear: the boundaries between victim and tormentor, reality and nightmare, are far thinner than we dare to imagine. Mia's final entry, written with a trembling hand in the depths of the sea of trees, leaves us with a question that lingers in the silence. When we confront the ghosts of our past, are we truly facing an external force or the hidden shadows within ourselves?
So yeah, that story was absolutely just awful. I hate every bit of that story. But it's a very interesting story, and that's what we do here. We talk about the dark, the creepy, the horrible, the spooky, the scary, the just awful stories. And that's definitely one of them. That is just awful. But hopefully when I go to Japan, I will not be kidnapped and I will not be stalked by ghosts and end up against my will in the suicide forest. That would be terrible. And I hope I just have a really good time and stuff myself full of so many different Japanese delicious foods and just meet so many amazing people, not spend too much time in the red light district, and have a good time. That's really what I'm going for, and to film all of it for some TV show. Whether it's my TV shows or somebody else's, I don't know who I'm going with. I'd like to have a partner in traveling to go there. Maybe it's you. Maybe you want to go with me. Book a ticket. I'll go right with you. Book my ticket too. I'll pay you back eventually. Anyways, subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. We do these kind of stories every single week. And hit the like button if you like the story. And we're working on all of our little bugs and issues. I know there's a volume thing going on here, and I don't know why, but it really sucks when you do a 15-minute voiceover and you think you nailed it, and then the audio is messed up. I blame me. Or the ghosts from today's story. I'll blame the ghosts from today's story. Those Japanese ghosts, and they keep screwing with my equipment. They knew I was going to tell the story. They didn't want me to. And here we are. Anyways, I will see you next week. I am Brandon Bishop, and leave a comment about all your Japanese stories, all your tourist stories in Japanese. If you live there, even better. I'm going to come there. I need a cameraman. So we'll see you next week. And what else am I going to do here? I got like 15 phone calls while I was reading this story. So I'm going to return them. Oh, nice. I got another story. It'll be next week's story. And it's a good one. And it's just awful.